Meeting in session. Okay, so we will walk you through the format of tonight's meeting, and then we will get started. So we will have our call to order. We will have our adoption of minutes from the last meeting. We will go through our old and new business. And there will be a presentation for each of the new cases that are on the docket tonight. Staff will present. Then the applicant will come and present after staff has made their presentation. There will be a public hearing. And for those who are in support of the applicant, but also for those who are against, we will hear both sides. Additional comments from the applicant, which will come after any opposition has stated their case. Then we will close the public hearing. We'll make a motion from the board to accept, deny, or defer, and then there will be a discussion by the board. And then we will vote on the new cases tonight, and then after that, we will adjourn, okay? All right, so we want to go through the approval of the.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Okay. All in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay. Anyone against? Okay. Okay, those in favor, we have, the motion is approved to approve, the motion has been approved to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Okay, so now we will go on to our cases. So tonight, our special exception request, we will move into case number Z 25-1 SE.
No, good evening. Again, we have Z25 1SE. This is, well, for two of you anyway, something you've seen before. Looks a lot like what we've seen last year. Mr. Kelly is wanting to hold a rodeo like he has for the last several years on his property, about 6 miles or so from Hickory Grove on Highway 97, and he wants to hold it. There's 3 different event times with, I got 5 dates I'd like to get approved for this year. And he's, at the special exception for the rodeo, and, they've been doing this the last couple of years. He has a 60-acre site. The applicant has made provisions for parking, traffic, sanitation, and safety as documented in the applications, and as he did last time. And I did have some family went to the rodeo and gave me a rave review about it. Said it was run really well. Things looked good. He had a neighborhood meeting that had positive feedback, and we haven't received any negative feedback or complaints about the event. Here's kind of what the neighborhood looks like. Vicinity map. There's a picture of the entrance a while back. I'm sure it looks similar. We have the same kind of setup we had last year. You'll see up here we have contested parking, and this is also an overflow parking area that we used last year. He's leaving the old Highway 97 available for emergencies only. So that would be an emergency exit in addition to their access on 97. So we need to look at some of the approval criteria for the special exception. We need to find adequacy of water and sewer facilities. Vendors and can provide drinks and things. It does have portable restroom facilities and hand washing stations and they'll be set up like they were last year. It worked out well. We need to look at the impacts on existing public services and public facilities. We kind of expect the anticipated impacts to be somewhat minimal. Ordinary traffic on 97 is low, in the range of a couple hundred trips per day. And this site, as you've seen on the pictures, has quite a bit of distance before the highway for stacking. So when people come in there, you can queue up a really long line so you don't back into Highway 97 getting people in. The event times are from 4 to 11 on Fridays and Saturdays, and the majority of traffic is expected after 7:30, so this is basically outside of a peak time. And again, the emergency route will just be utilized for emergencies only, so we find that reasonable. And we need to look at the compatibility of the use, proposed use on the surrounding uses. We have large lot development, farming, eggs, and tree lots. And also for this, we actually expand our distance for notification vastly. We usually do 500 feet, but since the lots are so big and the neighbors are so spread out, we did a radius of over a half mile, 2,500 square feet to get minimum amount of people we'd like to notice. And the nearest house is over 500 feet away from the corner, supporting the contestant parking. And there's really good buffers around that property already existing. Find it to be compatible with existing uses. And we find that the special exception meets all three of the approval criteria, and we'd recommend approval. The letters of coordination, as I mentioned before, are in the packet, and we didn't receive any feedback other, that's not in the packet, or I didn't receive any calls or anything. If you had any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
I have one. I did notice several dates in the application. And I remember this one from last year. And so it appears that he's listed, what, 4 dates?
Well, we got 3 instances. So you'd have 2 weekends, and then possibly, I was told the June 14th isn't 100%, but I told them to keep it because it'd be more apropos to skip it than to have it and not have it permitted. So I had him make sure it was in the application.
So he would just have to come one time, but he would list in his application what all dates?
Yeah,
he
those
wants
dates that
approved?
I have up
Okay.
there.
Okay, that's it.
I have a question,
Yes.
and we probably talked about this last year. I just don't remember. Anyway, if this application seems to be the exact same as it was last year,
Pretty much.
why do they have to come back every year to get approval?
Good question. Because the code, the way the code is written right now, you have to come in for a special exception annually. You can have it up to 4 instances of 10 days to be approved for the application. We talked about this too. We certainly wouldn't want to come in multiple times in a year, so we threw it all for 1 year on here and have them come back. We've been trying to kick around a way that would be a good way to deal with not having to come back, but not having to throw it all away, you know, because there could be reasons to come back. So we've kind of been doing some brainstorming, and we'll continue to work on that, whether it be if it significantly changes, or maybe after a while you could permit it for multiple years. I don't think you just want to let it go on perpetuity, you know, it shouldn't be never thought of again.
Well, could it be
But-
staff approval only? I mean,
Right.
Could be, you know, these things can be, you know, this particular instance is out in a good place for it, and, you know, you got lots of space and buffers and everything, but the next one might not be, you know, you could be closer to more impacts and would garner, you know, closer look at what's going on there and lessons learned maybe, but.
Oh, because I was thinking, if, it appeared to be exactly laid out as last year. So, as mentioned, if it's staff approval, as long as everything stays the same, the plans, the layout, the contingencies for emergencies, but if any of that were to change significantly, then you would have to go before the board, but, you know,
Yeah.
it appears that he's pretty much following a well-laid-out plan.
Exactly.
Sticking to it.
Yeah. And for this instance particularly too, I'm in total agreement with you, and you should try to, try to work on some sort of a code amendment that,
So this is a
be
yearly
reasonable.
event, is that correct?
Oh, you've been doing an annual, yeah, or at least 3 years now.
For 3 years, okay. And, I'm sorry, what about the handicap parking? I didn't see too much of that in the documentation that I actually read.
I will let the applicant speak to you about that.
Okay.
You got anything
Do we have
else?
any other questions for staff? Okay, well, if not,
Okay.
we will have the applicant come before us. And Ms. Kelly, we know you've done this before, but for
Yes,
the
sir.
record, if you could state your name, address.
Jeff Kelly, 3771 Highway 97 in Hickory Grove.
Thank you.
I just like to state that I appreciate Rick. He works with me, been doing a great job. I don't mind coming here, doing what we do. Appreciate you, saying what you said and maybe considering, biannually or whatever would help. But, I'll do what it takes. On your question with the handicap, I do have handicap at the beginning, right where we have our entry. We have multiple handicap spots because I have a staff that runs my parking. So they put them in there, and then we actually have carts to bring them also.
Do you know how many spots you have?
Let's see, we have, I'd say, at least 50.
And I don't think that matters, like, in regards to per person, how much do you charge? Because you're expecting like 1,500 per night, right?
Yes, ma'am. So say that again, I'm sorry, I can't hear.
How much do you actually charge to, per person?
It's $20 a head.
$20.
Yeah, well, kids are cheaper, yeah.
Okay. And seniors are,
We have, I tell you, normally, the seniors and veterans will say, come on in, or half price is what we don't do.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for the applicant? Okay, so at this time, Ms. Kelly, what we're gonna do is anyone that wants to speak on behalf, you can come to the mic and do so, and then we'll hear if there's anyone here in opposition.
Okay.
So, if we do that at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay. Anyone wanting to come and speak on behalf? I can wave my hand. I don't know if we can record that. Okay. If not, we don't want to coerce you, right?
Carolyn Atkins, 7245 Park Place Road, York, South Carolina. I have 7 children, and they're all in some form of ag events or agriculture business. We run a dairy farm. My oldest daughter, who is 32, she runs pro rodeo, and I wish we had a place for her to run near our home so that I could have went and see her ride. She rides barrels and pole bending, she trains horses, and this would give opportunities for children in our county to stay in our county, to be able to ride in our county, and give them the chance to be, support our county, be proud for our county. And Jeff is a really good guy. He allows kids to be out there and practice and everything. He supports our youth. And that's what we need to do in our county, is support our youth through agriculture, through farming, through rodeos and stuff like that. So, and I agree, there should be some type of contingency to allow him not to have to come back every year to do this. Because this puts a burden on our citizen who is providing something for our youth. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have anyone else?
I actually wasn't here for this matter. I'm here for the next matter, but I agree. My name is Natalie Dixon. I've lived in York County since I was 16 years old. I have 4 boys and a little girl on the way, and I'm done. And I grew up, my husband grew up in York County, and there used to be a little rodeo right down the street from where we live on Beamguard. I think it was called B&B at the time, and we spent lots of summers there. And there's just not a lot of things like that, like she stated, in our area. I was not aware of this event until tonight, so I'll definitely be involving my kids in it. And I think it's great that people use their resources and time and things like that to put this together for the kids. I think we do need more things like this, because there's just not a lot of it anymore, and you do have to travel sometimes a long way to go to rodeos. And we've seen them advertised, but a lot of times it's packing them all up and going far out to see them. So I think that it's a great idea, and I just kind of echo everything that's already been said about it.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. Okay, anyone else?
I'm Ann Gilfillan, 3710 Sawmill Road, Hickory Grove. I live less than a mile from the rodeo. I love it.
Okay.
We have no problem with the traffic. We have no problem with the rodeo. You can't hear, even at my house, you can't hear anything, so it's very great. But I'm always down there at it anyway, so I don't have to worry about hearing. But, when I'm on my way down there, there's no noise or anything that where it's bothering anyone. So everyone around there loves it. We're just glad Jeff moved here and is doing something for the community.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, do we have anyone else? Okay, well, we'll transition. Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Okay, well, if not, we will have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the special exception request as submitted.
I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Okay, do we discuss?
Can I ask if there's
Any discussion? Okay, well, we will vote. All of those in favor of the motion to approve the special exception for the rodeo, please raise your right hand. I guess there's no one else to say nay. So. But for the record, anyone in opposition, raise your hand. So the A's have an approval. So we officially have voted to approve the special exception for the rodeo. And Mr. Kelly, thank you for everything you're doing, and have a great evening. All right, and we will move into our next case, case Z25-3, V as in Victor.
Thank you. So Z25 3B for variance. The property on Highway 161 involves the minimum lot width along the highway there, the rural development district. The applicant is requesting a variance to the minimum lot width along the highway, and he proposes to divide the lot that currently has 2 manufactured homes into 2 lots with 1 home each. Each homes have established driveways, been there for over 30 years. the lot is approximately 300 feet of frontage. The proposed lots would have approximately 150 feet each once divided, so you would technically be giving variances for 200 square feet for each lot. No changes to the driveways or uses proposed. And once this is done, the two manufactured homes would be compliant, because right now, you wouldn't be allowed to have two on one lot. They would each have their own lots. This is the lot with a zoning map, all surrounded by RUD lands. Vicinity map without the color. And this is just a kind of a concept of what the applicant wants to do, but they have enough property to divide the land and keep buffers between the two manufactured homes and get the minimum 1 acre lot with this. And all we need is a little break on the frontage. And these two driveways are, separated pretty well or compared to everything else around it. And nothing's really going to change here. This is what it looks like from the road. The driveways are off to the right and left. If you get the driveways in, the picture gets small, hard to discern. So we have a variance approval criteria, and we need to find that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property. This one has the two independent mobile homes with their own accesses that was created when this was allowable. The subdivision of the property will have newly created lots, so we'll be able to comply with zoning regulations with only one on them per lot. So we would find it meets the criterion. And you need to find these conditions generally do not apply to other property in the vicinity. The other properties in the vicinity, you won't find multiple mobile homes or even homes on other lots except for the trailer court across the street, which is the way you would need to do it. And we're not looking at a trailer court, we just have two manufactured homes. So we don't find that happening to other properties in the vicinity. And then we talk about, because of the application conditions of this chapter, a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And this is kind of an interesting case because leaving the property like it is restricts it. Non-conforming houses, we can't expand on them, we have problems if we're gonna make a deck or move it or replace it with a bigger one, or even something outside of the footprint. They can't do much with it now. A variance will create the ability to reasonably use the lot. They would be able to put, porches or deck on structures that are there or move them and such. So this would, meet the criterion, would actually help take away unreasonable, maybe restrictions that are there now. So also it can't be a detriment to the adjacent property or public good, the character of the district. Well, here, nothing changing. This isn't gonna, once they do this, it's not, nobody will know the difference except if you're looking at the plat map. Driveways, still gonna support the same use. So we find it meets the criterion, and we find it meets all four, and we would recommend approval for the requested.
So I have a quick question. Looking at the photo you have now, it says approximately 160 feet of road frontage.
Yeah.
That's if it's divided based on this view we see here, right?
Yeah.
Which would be what, 320 feet? Maybe it's a clerical thing, but on page 28, it says it has approximately 300 feet of frontage. So is it 300 or 320?
That's what I found. The applicant gave this, I did use the word approximate in here, because this one was tough. I had to measure it in front because it's a really old plat. I didn't know. We could look up it exactly, but it will, be split in half and be approximately a 200 feet difference for all of them.
Because does that matter if we're giving a variance for X number of feet of road frontage? Do you
Yeah.
need to be exact?
Well, I did put approximately on there because, this isn't done, the field work could, change a little bit. I would imagine it would be within, a reasonable deviation of that, and it'll be even.
Now, my question, are you done? And please correct me if I'm wrong. When you say, I'm visual, when you say subdivide, you're trying to divide it more.
Yeah, we're splitting it in half, so we'll make 2 out of 1.
Okay, but I'm looking at your picture and it looks like it's already,
Oh, I put the black line in there. That's a concept line that,
Okay.
it may not end up exactly like this. These two have to have a minimum of 1 acre. It's totally possible. This line could go a little different direction when a surveyor gets in there and figures out the exact amount. And also a surveyor would tell us exactly how much is on there when he does his field work. It'll be close. But the idea is to split in half, and they'll have to go right down the middle to get in between the two homes there, and then it can kind of migrate up here if it needs to.
and the other stuff around that, that's like a shed and so on, is that?
Yeah, the accessory structures there, you mean the neighbors?
Yes,
Or this?
no.
You got a shed there and a shed there?
Mhm, okay. Is this rental property?
I'm not aware.
Okay.
And so based on the details provided, there's already 2 of everything out there. Driveways, septic tanks, even 2 house numbers and everything, correct?
Yeah, for over 30 years. So.
Are they 2 addresses? Okay.
Yep. And they're in here too. They got, yeah, 747, 474 and 468, Highway 160.
Okay, any other questions for staff? All right, I guess if not, we will now hear from the applicant. Just as before, if you will come and state your name again, since this is a different case.
Okay, I'm Natalie Dixon again. So basically, to
Name
answer.
and address.
Oh, sorry, Natalie Dixon. My address is actually 2193 Beam Guard Road, Clover, South Carolina, 29710. So currently, the owner of the property that is highlighted is the house to the left. Well, my left, that's not highlighted. He owns both lots. So, not in the blue, but the one to the left side of that kind of has that like moon-shaped driveway. He owns all of that property. His son lives in that middle trailer, and then my dad here in the back lives in the one to the right. So my dad has been renting for about 7 years from the owner. And the owner's just has gotten elderly. He's up in his 80s, doesn't have the means to maintain the property. So my husband has been, anything that needs to be fixed or done has fallen on us. And so our wish is just to purchase this property for my dad in order to give him a stable home, to where, you know, if something were to happen, that him and my brother are not looking for housing or on the street or whatever. So the only way that we can successfully purchase the property is for that property to be divided. And like it's already been stated by staff, there's going to be no change. If anything, there would be upgrades to something that needed to, you know, take place with the mobile home itself. But it's not going to add any additional traffic, put any additional driveways. It's going to remain as is. The only real change will just be that one person will own past the right side of the black line and somebody else will own the left side. And that's the true only change that there is, so.
And maybe some value too. You think it will add some value to?
Well, eventually it will definitely add value because there's things that we would do to even improve the condition, and we have already, but at the same time, because my father currently rents it, we've been restricted on what we want to put money into, because at this point, you know, he could say, hey, you know, I'm going to sell it, or I'm going to, you know, anything could happen. So we have made improvements already, but of course, we would continue if we owned it it would only improve. But that is really the sole reason, is just to provide a stable,
Environment.
living situation for my dad, who's also elderly and things like that. So I would appreciate it if y'all could approve it and, like I said, they're really, nobody would even know the difference other than if you looked at the deed for ownership.
Are you the applicant?
I am the applicant, yes.
Okay.
And
But
the-
you don't own the property?
I do not own the property, but the owner of the property did sign, just did give us consent and sign. Like I said, he's in his 80s, so more or less, this will be, for us, it'll be a cash buy, and he doesn't have the means to do all the things. So basically, we're doing everything on our end to make it happen, on his behalf, but he
Well,
did.
I'm just curious, I mean, it don't really matter one way or the other. Are y'all gonna buy both lots or
That was
the
gonna
whole
be my
piece?
question.
No, sir, we're just gonna buy the right side, so the trailer that's
Okay,
technically
Once you get it.
So,
divided.
so
Yes.
by address, you're buying 468.
correct,
But in order to do so, it has to legally be divided.
correct.
Okay, I understand.
Legal boundaries.
Yes, and so we have a surveyor set up, but this was kind of the first step to get it divided, because there's no point in doing all that until this road frontage issue was solved and waived. So we would only be purchasing the 468. The other two properties would still be owned by that the landlord. Bill Lemming is his name. And like I said, he lives on that far left side that's not in blue. His son lives in the middle trailer or mobile home, which will eventually all be that whole left side will all belong to the son. But those lots for 30 years have been, I guess, like they said, I was 6, I don't know, but apparently you could do that then. So it's been that way for many, many years, and that's just, currently, it's just on one plot of land, which is like 2.32 acres. So it'll divide each lot in approximately a little over an acre.
How old is the property?
How old?
You know?
That deed was older than me. I'm not real sure. I think the current owner bought it back in the 80s, but I don't know if there was property on it prior to that or not.
Yeah.
The trailer that my dad is in is pretty, I would say, probably at least 30 years old. It's pretty old.
And the owner is in agreement or under contract, you guys are.
We have,
entering a contract?
we have a buyer-seller contract. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No, I understand now.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
All
At
right.
this time, we will ask if there's anyone else wanting to come and speak of favor of the application. Okay, if not, is there anyone who wants to speak against? Okay, well, at this time, I guess we will close the
We'll
public
vote.
forum for this case, and we will have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the variance as requested.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now we're open for any discussion.
I would just say this is actually a really excellent case for a variance. It's one of the rare instances where you're actually making a lot better under the zoning code. So I just think, it definitely meets all 4 criteria in my opinion, so I think it's very straightforward.
I agree.
Any other comments?
I agree too.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor of the motion to approve the variance for case number Z25-3V, raise your right hand. All those against, who'd like to vote against the motion? Okay, the motion to approve has been approved.
Yeah.
So, guess this closes case
Yes, yeah.
Z25-3V. You have your approval. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Good luck.
All right, we will move into our last case for the night, case number Z25-4V.
Okay. We have a variance request, Varian, Associate Planner for York County. Variance request tonight, the owner of a property, Aaron Von Riper, he owns 4392 Ivywood Drive. The zoning there is RSF 40. and it's a variance for minimum side setbacks of a 10-foot setback to about a 5-foot setback. We'll go through the summary here. The applicant wishes to place a 1,000 square foot metal prefab garage on the right side of his existing 2,000 square foot home. The proposed location is adjacent to the attached two-car garage and the existing driveway. The placement of the garage requires a 5-foot reduction to the 10-foot setback. So that is why we are here tonight. Here we have the vicinity map. You can see here in color. It's a larger lot in the Ivy Wood subdivision. I had the pleasure of driving through there today. Zoning map, it's zoned RSF 40. You can see a mixture of some higher density zoning designations. That PD to the east is Newport Commons, which is also preparing a preliminary plat. We'll see how that goes. All right, here we have to the left is the plat showing the property. You can see the blue line stream there and the floodplain to the rear. So it's pretty restricted on where anything can be placed. It has to be at the front of the lot. And to the right there is the site plan showing the proposed garage. And I put the little red mark on there kind of showing where that 10-foot side setback is according to the plat. And a picture here, this is dead on the property line going straight back. The garage would be behind that kind of gravel there and the truck and the Jeep. And, wrong way. And then this is kind of from that area to the other side of the house there. You can see his dogs in the front yard. They were very happy to talk to him. We'll go through the approval criteria. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Despite the large lot size, much of the rear acreage is encumbered by that blue line stream and the floodplain. So the placement of the existing garage and the topography of the lot limit the possible location of potential detached garage on that particular side of the house. So staff does find the proposal meets this criteria. Conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The parcel and the next two parcels to the south of it are similarly encumbered by the same stream and floodplain. This parcel actually has more buildable area than the other two. So staff finds proposed variance does not meet this criteria. Third one, because of these conditions of the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of this property. Subject parcel has a relatively flat buildable acreage to the north side of the home that will support the addition of a detached garage in that location. Therefore, staff finds proposed variance does not meet this criteria. And the final criteria, the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. The existing neighborhood has wide spacing between the structures, fostering a rural feel to the development. In fact, there's a horse farm in there with a ring and a barn. The addition of a large structure immediately adjacent to the neighboring home conflicts with the character of the area. So therefore, staff finds the proposed variance does not meet this criteria. And staff finds the proposed variance does not meet all four criteria for an unnecessary hardship, so staff does recommend denial of this requested variance. I'll go back to the plat and the site plan. You have any questions for staff?
I have one. Looking at the view over here, the blue structure, was there any discussion with the applicant as to, because I always question, to what extent were there discussions, alternative proposed before it got to coming here tonight? Were there any alternatives or anything proposed? Hey, I want 1,000 square foot. I want to turn it this way, put it here versus, well, hey, if you thought, if you shrunk it just 50 square feet, you would fall within that line and not even have to pay for a variance and go before the board, et cetera?
Yep, yes.
None of that took?
Rick did speak with the applicant, and it was decided the applicant really wants it here. There's a brick wall to the rear there, so that's kind of limiting how far back he can push it, because there is topography down to the stream.
I think my question was kind of on that same line, just to educate myself. Something like this, I would think that it would maybe go through a HOA or something of that nature, but it sounds like because of what the modifications that he's actually asking for, it had to come before the county, is that?
Right, it has to
okay.
meet zoning designation of 10-foot side setback. We do not enforce HOA covenants.
Okay,
So we can give them a permit, but whether or not they can actually execute the permit
okay,
due to their HOA is outside of our purview.
okay. And again, I'm trying to visualize what he's trying to do. It's a garage, right? He's just trying to expand it, because from my takeaway of reading the information prior to, it's a garage there.
No, it is
No,
not there.
It's not there,
No.
okay, all right, so he's just,
It's a brand-new
it's a
structure.
brand-new structure, gotcha.
The concrete between the proposed building and the house, that's evidently for the driveway, right?
Mhm.
How far, how much would, what am I trying to say? It's a 10-foot setback, right?
Correct, yes,
And
sir.
he's going to change it to 5?
He's showing 5.2 feet from the
So
setback.
to move
for
the
property
building
line.
over 5.2, would put it over into the driveway or the drive parking area.
Mhm.
And I guess that won't work, or
It's not desirable for the applicant.
okay.
It could work, but it's not desirable.
Correct.
Okay, any more questions for staff? Okay, now, thank you. Now we will hear from the applicant. Please state your name and address.
My name's Aaron Van Riper. I live at 4392 Ivywood Drive, Rock Hill, South Carolina, 29732. I was only requesting to have the front right corner at 5.2 feet. Where you see where it states gravel, my driveway's gravel, and it points to the corner of my home. There's a attached garage there. I would not be able to pull my Jeep into that garage if it's not squared up with my house. That's the reason for me to
Goes
do
in
this.
this way.
Yeah, I've tried the maneuver with, I paid for a survey on my land, and there's just not enough room there. A couple other things that weren't mentioned, at least that I heard, the floodplain would make it to where I would have to, of any other areas on my property, I'd have to build a bridge and go to the back of my property to build the same structure. If I went to the opposite side of my home, I'd have to build a gravel driveway, and on the complete opposite side of my home is my septic system, and there's a lot of large pine trees. I spoke with a neighbor, Bruce Piles. He lives directly next to me, where instead of the 10-foot setback, we'd be pushing the building 5 feet to his property line, just on that right front corner. The right rear corner would be at 10 feet. He's completely okay with it. Been in contact with Rick about it. I wasn't told anywhere else that looks like that you can build on here, and I am under the understanding, because there's a Duke power pole that goes probably halfway between the floodplain and the back of my home. So I'm not up to code on how close you can build to that, but that's another restriction that I've seen. Buying this piece of property, I guess, being younger, I wasn't aware I'd have this many restrictions. I'd already planned on putting this building there to store my equipment and lawnmower and that sort of thing, to keep it out of the elements, attachments for equipment and whatnot.
Just to make sure I'm clear, so this is you already have a garage port there?
I do.
Okay, and
There's-
you're trying to make, I guess, create a standalone,
Correct,
okay, garage, okay?
Yep.
And it's your property, correct?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah, it's almost 7 acres, and there's a lot of land there, but a lot of it's wet, a lot of it's, the small stream that's back there, even though it's a 100-year floodplain, there's 4-foot banks on there, and there's barely any water that run through there. There's a small bridge that is over that stream from the previous owner, but I would have to have something engineered in order to get to the back right corner of the property. You know, if you look throughout this neighborhood, there are a lot of metal buildings that have been installed within the past 5 years. I can list off quite a few friends of mine in the neighborhood that have them. I just wanted this square with my house so I can still use my existing garage.
And as you stated, it's not going to interfere with anybody's property or any.
There's a
okay.
fence between me and the neighbor, as
Neighbor,
you
okay.
saw in the photo. When I had my land surveyed, you know, when I was speaking with the neighbor next door, I thought the fence was more on my property, and like anyone's survey, the pin was closer on my side of the property. I spoke to him even potentially about buying a section of property, and I spoke with a surveyor about resurveying a section out. I was just hoping not to have to go through all that to change, just to have the building tweaked just a little bit.
And you said you're going to use that in combination with your, the garage port that you have. You'll be able to use, it'll be close by.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
so that, the existing concrete that's there, that was poured with the home. So this would made up next to that. So I have 3 vehicles, a tractor, and I just like keeping stuff out of the sun, easier on mine, keeps it nicer, as intense as the heat is around here. And it's just for personal use.
So, as the question was posed to staff, had there been any consideration of, or the 1,000 square feet, which the size of what you're proposing does, and the way you've positioned it, I can understand how you want to be able to turn and get in and maneuver, the way it's positioned. But the size, even if you didn't have a perfect rectangle, if it would just a different square footage that got you out of that 5 feet. Because if you think 5 feet, how much square, and we're not talking around the total back, just that corner. If the building was shrunk just to get inside that line, does that make it inoperable? For what impact would that have?
So ideally, I back my trailer in the driveway. I have a car trailer, equipment trailer. I wanted to be able to back that into the building, so, you know, when I'm done doing my work for the week, it's up and out of the elements and out of sight, out of mind for anybody. If there's people wanting to take anything off my trailer, I don't feel like unloading. I just wanted to pull the whole rig in there. That's my reason for it. I can't go further back because I have a well there, and the property drops off pretty substantially from that wall back. Could do a smaller overall length building. I just, rather than be one of those houses that, you know, you have a shed and another shed to store your stuff and another one, I wanted to just build the size building that I could potentially afford now and make it the way I want it, so that I don't have to have you know, a lean-to against it, storing other tractor implements or creating more storage. I just trying to make it smart.
Understood. You wanted to be functional.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But I guess the part that is a little bit of a challenge for me is it's similar to when we have the swimming pools. They want a pool a certain size. Therefore, I need to go into that setback. But do you have to have a pool that size? So if you came down and that, you see where that arrow is near the back? I guess from here, the furthest most corner up in the right. If you just came down and then instead of the building being just a straight line, once it meets that red line where you would go intersect that setback, instead of intersecting it and going out, if you just carried it straight along that red line, it would be, from an aerial view, someone would see, okay, that's unique, but he ran along that line, so he didn't encroach into the setback. Does that take away that much functionality from you?
For me, it does, because what you can't see in this picture, and I could be wrong, I think that was initially one that I submitted, and then you drew the line over. I was having a tough time with the computer on making that rectangle exactly symmetrical to what it is, but the building is, I'm already cutting about 1.5 feet off of that concrete that's there. And in between where the blue building is and where it says concrete, I have a gate, and that allows me to pull my truck and trailer down to the other portion of the property. It just pushing it over that far doesn't, it is less desirable for the situation. I was thinking that since I'm kind of limited to that place, or I think the only other place on there would be like I was saying, back right corner in front of my home that I could even be allowed to build. I guess not really sure what else I can tell you on there other than it inhibits what I already have spent money to put the gravel driveway in, and I'm trying to cut less of the concrete that I have.
So y'all don't have an HOA out in
We do not have an HOA.
I'm surprised about
Yes,
this.
sir.
Have you talked to the neighbor that's gonna be closer to?
Bruce Piles? Yes, sir.
What
No
they say?
problem at all. He said, build as close to me as you want. There's a fence there. I told him, I mend the fence. He's had some health issues, and he's back healthy now, but I've cut trees down for him in the front yard that he's had fallen over. Helped out with his mother-in-law that lived there. I mean, we have a great relationship.
And that would make it how close to the property line?
5 feet.
Okay. 5 instead of 10?
Yes, sir. That's just that right front corner. And that, I know it seems silly, but it just squared up with my house. I'll have a door facing the 2 doors on my attached garage, so I'll be able to take my toolbox and wheel it across if I'm working on my tractor or doing maintenance, that sort of thing. I work on all my own vehicles, so oil changes and whatnot. But having it in that area just more desirable to me.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant?
Well, how far back is the brick wall? Is the brick wall, let me ask you this, is the brick wall able to be torn down to move the building back?
There's a well behind that, and I had to be 15 feet away from there on the
You gotta
building.
move it back a good ways, apparently,
Yeah,
to get it out of there.
and it
Could you
would,
turn it, angle it to where it's running parallel with your house, not parallel, but in the
With
same.
that line?
so where it's, the arrow's pointed to where it says CONC, I could potentially extend the brick wall into grade and then get 15 to 20 dump truck loads of dirt and fill in that area that's there to make the,
Behind the concrete?
yeah, I could, because it's about a 4-foot drop right there. So I could taper a wall back and curve it into grade. I'd have to have, you know, backfill and whatnot, and then.
I'm just trying to figure out a way.
Yes, sir. Trust me, I've tried to think of them all because I love the piece of property. I need a certain amount of room to store all the pieces of equipment that I have, and, you know, I have a Mini X and a skid steer and trailer. And, you know, I have chickens, and I'm trying to, do a garden this year. I'm self-employed now, as of September of last year, so I'm trying to make my property how I'd desire it the most.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
It's the only reason I say I'm kind of limited on where I can position it. So,
All right, there are no other questions for the applicant. So at this time, we're gonna open it up if there's anyone here to speak on behalf of the request. If you're just here out of curiosity and you're not here to speak for or against. Okay. Okay. Okay, so for the record, no one here to speak for, and anyone here to speak against the request? Okay, no follow-up questions for the applicant? If not, we will open it up for motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, discussion.
Well, I mean, he's going closer to the property line, but he's not hurting anything, he's still within his property. And I don't think that's gonna be a problem with his neighbor or anybody, because it's not crossing over the property line. I mean, that's just me. Now, I understand you got zoning rules and all that, but sometimes, I mean, you don't have another choice, it looks like, and sometimes you just have to, I think you just have to,
And it sounds like he's conferred with his neighbors already
Yeah.
in there.
that's
Okay.
just my thought.
I disagree.
I know.
Not for the fact, I get the convenience aspect of it, I get the size, I get why you need it. I live on a farm, I understand needing places to store things, but I think at the same time, this is a very buildable lot. There might be somewhere you can put it that's a little less convenient, but at the end of the day, you know, convenience isn't necessarily what we're here to consider. And the one that I'm really hung up on is that, you know, the zoning ordinance is really prohibiting you from using your property. I get why you want this, but I don't think I could say that this meets all 4 criteria in good faith, even though I do have sympathy for, you know, why you want this in the place you do. I really do. I just think it comes down to, we do have certain rules we need to follow, and I can't get behind all 4 criteria.
And for me, officially, to your point, there are options. It's not as though he has no option. You don't have to have 1,000 square foot garage. You may want and have to have, and what we approve based off what, does the applicant's desire overrule those 4 criteria when there are options? How many feet can you just shave off that building and he doesn't even have to come here at all? Doesn't even have to turn it, just a little bit of an odd design but
That
does
would be a-
that take
would be
away?
a very odd design. I mean, it just would. I can understand. It it needs to be a rectangle or a square. It's not even, that don't even make it a triangle, but I know what you're saying.
5 feet.
Yeah, but if you move up, it's only 3 feet. You move up again, it's only 1 foot. That's at the worst spot. And I don't think it's hurting anything, but that's me. It's like a swimming pool. Like you talking about swimming pools. It doesn't hurt to have the,
It doesn't hurt, but does that get them over the criteria because they want it? And there are some restrictions, but does it raise to the level of meeting all those 4 criteria? That's what we have to consider. So I guess discussion, we will vote. All right, so so the motion was to approve the request. All those in favor of approving the request, raise your right hand. And those against,
we had this before.
so we're deadlocked. So do we have so that motion fails.
That motion fails, so the request for the variance would fail.
Would fail. Okay,
So you do not need any other motion.
okay.
It fails by way of a tie. If you request the variance, you would have to get a majority of the board to approve that request to be able to obtain a variance.
How is this different from the one that we had last time that we met 3 times over?
So your prior practice was to have another vote, which you don't need. But the sitting chair, if he would like to continue to follow that practice until we have full board up here again and can discuss that, certainly welcome to do that. But the overall implication is that it would fail unless you want to have another vote, which presumably would also tie. And then you're stuck with that unless you want to defer the item. Those are your options.
Well, let me ask a question. If there were a vote to defer, there would have to be a purpose for that deferral. Would that be for the option of him meeting with staff again and looking at what other options there may be?
I think that would be a fully defensible reason for deferring it.
So at
Yes,
this time, can we ask him if that's something he would be willing to consider?
You don't have to ask him if you want to defer it.
Not if
You
we
could-
want
You
to
could
defer,
defer it
but,
to give him the option to do that.
okay,
And then he could choose whether or not to do that. And you would put a time limit on a deferral.
say like for the 30 days
Yes, sir.
to come again?
Yes, sir.
So I'm not asking him as to whether we can defer or not, because we can do that totally without.
Absolutely.
But if he says to me tonight, no, it's this or nothing, then there's no point of a deferral. But can we ask him, if we gave him a 30-day referral
Yes, sir.
and time to meet with staff, would that give him the opportunity to look at some alternatives?
Yes, sir. you
And
can.
after 30 days, he would come back and we'd vote again on it? Or the board would vote again on it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I can ask him that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't need to state my name again, right?
No.
Yeah, all right.
So if we were to vote to defer and not just reject you and that's that, that deferral would give you 30 days to meet with staff to say, let us, what alternatives or options would you have? And then at that point, you and staff would come back, say you come up with an alternative, whatever that may be. Or it could just be after the 30-day deferral, if you and staff don't come up with alternatives, but you come back and there's another vote, that vote, is that something, if we gave you that as an option, is that something you would be willing to consider?
Can I state something else first?
That's at your discretion.
Go ahead.
To your point, you and Bud had discussion about a funny shaped building. Was already approved for the size of the building, and I should be able to build, since I'm paid for my land, the size building that I desire. I mean, that's why we're all doing what we do and we live here. That's what I consider. There is not another spot on this property where you can put that size building. You can't, unless I put it sideways in front of my house, and you got to look at my metal building, driving through the neighborhood. If I have giant pine trees that are on the back left-hand corner of my property, and that Duke, there's power poles that go in. There's literally not another spot on there as stated. So for this, in the way it's positioned, I feel like that's the best aesthetically for the property, and I'm dumbfounded that this isn't going through for a variance request for one corner of my building. I can't move it further forward because it would conflict with my driveway. There's already a fence there for my dogs. It creates a pinch point on the property. I'm almost $10,000 in on this already, and before I had my survey, I was completely dumbfounded that the stake was so far on my side of the property. There's a fence there. I've just, like anybody, when you buy a property, there's a fence there. You're just measuring off there and assuming that that's your property line when you're trying to map something out. This whole process should be fun for a homeowner. It's my dream to have a shop like this, to be able to work on my own projects, do my,
We do understand,
Yeah.
but you also have to realize you live in a county.
what's that?
You live in a county,
Yes, sir.
and that county has ordinances and rules that we have to follow, which apply to all of us. Just-
Correct.
I can only go so far, so close to my property line. So to your point, it's your property, you purchased it, yes. To an extent, we can do what we want to do within,
Yes.
when we choose to live in that county.
Yes, sir.
Right. However, there are rules that we have to follow as far as those 4 criteria that need to be met. So, yes, you should be within your right to put what you want there, but when you want to put it in a certain spot that encroaches into a setback that's put there by the county, that's what brings you here. And then when you do have options, is there anything that says you have to have 1,000 square feet? That may be give and take, where the county says, hey, we can work with you, but are you willing to? And that may be where the gray area is. I can have it. I could have put 900 if I just stayed out of that line and never had to come before them tonight.
How long has this been zoned for that setback? Because on old documentation that I dug up, I believe, and I could be corrected or it could be misinformation that I found, that there used to be a 5-foot setback on these properties. Or maybe the zoning changed over past years, because I had this plan on building for a while, and to gain excitement for myself, I would research and whatnot. And I believe I have a screenshot of where it used to be. 5-foot setbacks. Could be wrong.
The zoning setback has been 10 feet since zoning was enacted in the 80s.
In the 80s?
Yes, sir. Yeah. The red line there is the setback according to the original plat.
So, this entire line of questioning, and you saw the vote, it was really to try to give you some other option to look at. Now, if you want to take 30 days, just so you think about it, and say, you know what, do I really want to have it denied and then I don't get what I want? Or let me just think about it 30 days and I can come back and whatever the outcome may be, I'll live with it and just take 30 days. But if that's not something you're willing to consider, then we can let the vote stand as it is.
So I noticed on the prior hearing that their property lines were like this. When I approached about my survey, the way that my property's pie-shaped, I spoke with them about just buying a section of land to make this where it would,
Where it
and-
wouldn't, you wouldn't require it, right?
exactly. Where is the defining line on that as far as,
You mean
What-
if you
what
were
am
to
I
go
allowed-
to your neighbor and say, can
Yeah.
I just buy 5 more feet? And that pushed the line that way 5 feet, which got you out of,
because what I was instructed was that, that you like nice, clean lines. And I was gonna approach my neighbor and ask if I could buy a jet out, whether it's at the street and buy a few feet over. I mean, that's a last case scenario, because I'm on a budget with this as well, but, or where my house is at, you have it jet over. I was just curious where that falls, because I wasn't 100% sure on that.
It's absolutely okay to do that. We call it a recombination plat. As long as your neighbor's property does not drop below an acre, 40,000 square feet is the minimum lot size, you're fine.
And this board doesn't consider shape of properties in that way.
That could be
So,
something he works on.
what a deferral would do, would give you time to find that out, and if that works. You and the neighbor could agree to it, you and staff work on the details, and you come back in 30 days, this is what we've come up with, great, fine, and you got what you need. And that's why we're saying, take 30 days to look at your options.
I know,
I understand, but
yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll,
half of,
What- the
half
other
of
option's
what you
just
want
denied, right?
versus all of.
all right, yeah, I understand.
Right.
It wouldn't affect it if I buy more property from the neighbor anyway. I would just file for a permit at that point, right?
Right, right.
So I already have money down on this building. I already have money down on the survey that I did and money for this variance. And I was told ahead of time that I could not buy a chunk out like that. So I'm confused on the misdirection.
So you've been told you can't do that?
No, because I had mentioned after my survey that if I gave him a piece of the rear of the property, and that one idea is for the nice clean line would be go straight up through, but I only wanted to buy just enough to get my property on, or my building on the property. And I was instructed that they like nice clean lines.
Because just to kind of help move
I'm
us along.
just being honest.
If you look at that picture back there where that K is, where it says brick wall. If he went there and then you look where the red line crosses through the blue building. Let's just say he and the neighbor said, let's just swap pieces here where I I go a little further there and you get a piece here, he gets to have the building that size. He has to have it at that angle where he wants it, that size, and he gets out of that 5-foot setback. Is that even a viable option for him?
It is. We call them land swaps. It happens usually when it's existing structures that are too close. But, in particular, new neighborhoods where somebody builds too close to a property line. But, it does happen. We call them land swap. It's a recombination
I
plat.
thought he said that they wouldn't let him do that. Right?
That's what I
But
said.
who is they?
Yeah.
When I was speaking with you after my survey, Rick?
Yeah, I was trying to get, well, the original, conversation, you were told by your surveyor that we like straight lines. You weren't told by us or had anything reviewed that said we wouldn't do that. We certainly would consider something that would get you that 5 feet one way or another. It's not a big deviation. We're not making it crazy. It's just a little notch. We got plenty of.
So he
Plenty of
would
lots of
just need
notches.
he and his neighbor to work that out. So you're hearing here tonight on the record, I probably wouldn't go all into who told me what, and I understand, as a resident, you're probably frustrated. But you're here before the board, on record tonight, being told, if we give you a deferral, on the record, you're being told you have the option to work out with your neighbor. You could swap those two pieces. You're being told here, they don't care about a perfect, beautiful line. If it works and it gets you out of that setback, you have that option. A deferral gives you 30 days, or if you think it will take more than 30 days to work that out, if you want 60, it could be deferred until then. You work out those details and just come back and you're fine.
I guess it's not deferred and I still buy property from him, it would go back through zoning, I would assume.
Well, if you buy the property from him, you won't even have to come to zoning, I guess, because then you won't.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just wasting y'all's time, no offense.
No, I get it, I get it.
We've had worse.
I understand,
So,
I wouldn't,
so really to answer his question, the motion that was set forth tonight can fail, which means he would be denied.
Yes, sir.
Right, for the record.
Yes, sir.
Case closed, we're done. But he can go back to his neighbor and say, hey, I was denied, but I was told if you and I were willing to, if you were willing to sell me 5 feet here, or we can do a swap. I'll give you 5 further down, and you give me 5 here. He can still ultimately, and then he doesn't have to come back here, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
you know, it's funny, when I came in here tonight, and I've never done this before, I was curious how, if it was voted 2-2, how it would fall, but I guess I found out. I'll proceed with reaching out to my neighbor. I feel bad, I wasted time at this
No,
point,
no.
because it's pushed my project back, and this is just for me not knowing enough information about what I'm allowed to do. I had no idea that it would go this direction tonight.
And then
My
we
apologies.
could have voted against, and we would have still been, deadlocked, but then it would have failed, because
So are you gonna take the deferral or accept the deferral, or are you just gonna let it slide and go by or swap with your neighbor?
I mean, my only option is putting the building there. I've already have thousands and thousands of dollars, so I don't need a deferral. I now have to ask him for the land, because it doesn't, I have to figure out the steps on getting the land from him. I guess I'd have to have paperwork to do there, buy it, get a lawyer involved, more hurdles.
But if you take the deferral, it gives you some other options to look at in the meantime, is you still be working with your neighbor, and you're not out of it altogether. I don't know.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, it sounds like we've reached a good point on discussion.
Okay.
Perhaps just as a matter of caution, it might be best if you want to go ahead and,
Okay,
as a courtesy, open it for another motion.
okay. All right, so do we have any other motion that we want to consider tonight? Or we want to let the motion, the original motion stand?
And that would need to come from you or Lauren if another motion is going to be made.
Okay. All right, if there's no, then we'll let the original motion stand. And that means the motion to approve fails because there was no majority vote. Okay.
And you're not gonna do the deferral.
And,
That's entirely up to you, sir.
well, he said the deferral really wouldn't, he's still gotta go to the neighbor. He could do that without coming back. So I've asked,
Yes,
would
sir.
the deferral be of help to you, and I've offered it.
And that's still
But-
entirely your prerogative.
I guess I'll go with that and do the deferral and,
If
I
you
mean,
want
if
to
you
keep the
recommend-
matter open, you can make a motion to defer it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to grant a deferral for 30 days for the applicant to come back after doing research on what his options are and meeting with staff. He can come back in 30 days, present any new findings, alternatives, et cetera, and there will be a vote at that time. So I'm making a motion that we defer for 30 days. Is there a second?
No, second.
Okay. There's been a motion or a second. Do we need to discuss a deferral? Okay, all those in favor of a deferral, raise your right hand. Is that for? And those against? Okay, motion to defer has been approved. Okay, case closed. So we will have a motion to adjourn.
Yes, sir.
All those, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, those in favor of a motion to adjourn, raise your right hand.